A long, long time ago, I took a marketing class from a man who took a marketing class from Chihuly, the famous glass artist. And a lot of the things I learned secondhand from Chihuly were very valuable to me in developing my own art career. But most important, the question back then was who are my purchasers? Who are my collectors? In terms of teaching on either online or in person, the question has to shift to being, who are my students? And a lot of that ends up funneling to what is important to you. So if you're going to put everybody through a filter, that might be your students. The ones that are going to make it through the filter for me are people who like to travel. They value individual impressions. They like their memories. They're very much in the moment, and they're very authentic people. They're looking for a real experience. They're looking for the colors, the weather, the light, the sights, the sounds, the smells, the textures, the temperature. Through all of that, when they travel and paint with me in Ireland, Iceland, Ghost Ranch, wherever there's big water or a big vista, they are taking those same experiences of being out there and running it through a distillation process through their mindset and ending up being making makers. So they are creating yet another real experience when they paint whatever they are learning out there about that environment. So most important to me is who wants to make art. I don't really want people that are just going to they're looking for a social experience in my class with other artists. That's fine, but that should be way down the list. My people need drive. I can give them techniques, tools, skills as the instructor, but the student needs to bring drive to the equation. So who wants to make art? Travelers, people who like to go places, people who like to be right out in it, experiencing it. Those are my students. Great. Step number 1, taken care of. Number 2, how am I going to teach? I have new options. Mostly, my options right now are driven by a series of no's. No travel, no crowds. I can't do either one because of COVID-19. So, I have no in-person options right now. My tiny studio, there is no room to distance. So people can't come here, I can't go to them. So that means I'm probably going to have to teach online. And of course, I can use Zoom or GoToMeeting, and there are other options out there. The main thing is, no matter what you get, you're going to do a lot of testing. Now, I say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's more like 50 through 60. You're just going to have to get out there and do some recording. Figure out where you are in the spectrum. Can you handle this? There are other ways you could do it, more low-tech. You could email images back and forth. You can use the phone. You can use photos. You can send through the post office real pieces of art. You can do all of those in addition to online teaching. There really isn't any right way or wrong way to do it. But let me tell you how it worked for me. Not only can't I do crowds in person, but what I found is I couldn't do crowds online either. I could not keep track of what all these people were doing, whether it was down dog or hitting their head on the desk, or if they were just gazing off into space. I cannot see well enough to see what's going on with them, to react to what's going on. So, what I needed was bigger territory on my screen. I needed my students to be able to see me or my work surface, and I needed to see my student. then we could communicate. So I am limited with my online teaching to one student at a time. Knowing that to be true, then I have to figure out what are my costs. Because none of this comes free. Fortunately, I had quite a few things anyway. Cost to me. I had to get my GoToMeeting annual plan. That was pretty pricey, but I love it. Hardware. I had an old Windows PC. I had it already. Beautiful. I had to buy 2 webcams, one to have on me and one on my work surface. Now, that was pretty expensive because I couldn't use the one in my computer. It was just too fuzzy and not good at all as far as the microphone. And then the one over my work surface had to present a nice clear image. I'm still looking for a good mic. It'll probably cost me 3 of those dollar signs to get one. Camera boom, photo filming rigs, stands, I had those already. So I was able to position everything so that I could get a good result from all this hardware. My iPad Pro, I had that already. Had to buy a camera shutter remote because I have one, but I can't find it. I bought 2 LumiCube lights. They are fabulous and worth every penny. Then I had to consider, how much do I want to teach? And that's an important thing. In a day, week, month, or year, how much time do you want to teach? Because it will take away from your painting time, and it will take away from whatever else you have going on in your life, which is probably considerable. Space. I had to have enough room to leave everything set up and have it all available to me on one work surface, because most of the time I found was in the setup. So once I know those things, then I need to consider that there are 2 ways to think of the cost. Now, I might be of a mindset that I need to see every dollar of my costs come back to me from my students, and maybe I want to pay back within 3 months. Maybe I want to pay back in a year. Do my student fees cover the costs and reward me? There are different things that are pluses and minuses to those lovely students that I had that are travelers and like the individual experience anyway. So a lot of my students are going to value these particular issues around being an individual student with a fairly high price on 1 hour of instruction. That limits the number of students I'm going to have, which limits how my student fees are going to cover costs and reward me. But if part of my question is, how much do I want to teach? And if the answer is I don't want to teach all that often, then I can come to terms with whatever my costs are, and will my student fees cover it. However, there are other uses and benefits to being able to film your own work. For one thing, you can create YouTube demos. That ends up feeding people back into your website, back into your classes. It's easier to find on search engines. YouTube is a tremendous thing to get people back in the loop. It's also a value add to your students. Now, most of my YouTube videos have me demoing, but without a voice. And what does that mean? Well, they can watch that over and over again, and some people do, which is gratifying. A little binge watching from my students. And I've got good music out there, but I am not narrating what I'm doing. They need to come to me for a class if they're going to get the narration that comes along with it. I'm gaining teaching components that I can put together for classes. Most interesting of all is seeing my art on the screen as I am working is making my art better. I hope you've enjoyed this presentation. Kathleen Mooney, KathleenMooney.com. Thank you. Bye.